get seeds from reliable source. Always delighted to have you join me in a series of discussion. And I trust you have been going through all the social media platform that is made available. You've been getting to know a lot of informations that are educative and going to help you make decisions. And I also believe that a lot of us have been making decisions based on all of these informations that are at your disposal. If you're just joining us or watching us for the first time, do well to subscribe to all available social media platforms made available to you so that you get all informations that you need to get as far as the Silvawell Limited is concerned. Go to the YouTube channel. You have a lot of information that will help you to make up your mind or make your informed decision. I'm Emmanuel Binaka, an agricultural consultant, soil science and land management specifics. Over time now, we've been discussing about the oil palm. The oil palm as one of the best crops to be integrated with the real estate business. The reason being that it's one crop that has multiple channels, multiple avenues through which the investor can get return on his investment. And today we're going to narrow our discussion to looking at some challenges that is associated with the management of the oil palm, and to also share with you some of the way out of these challenges that have been put into practice by the Silvawell Limited. So few challenges of the oil palm management in Nigeria and the way out with Silvawell. Now, the oil palm cultivation comes with its own challenge, no doubt about that. And these challenges are obviously challenges that are manageable based on resources available at the disposal of the agro firm. Today, let's quickly run through 6 major challenges confronting or facing oil palm cultivation and management in Nigeria. One is what I will refer to as a decline or high cost of labor force. Now, speaking from experience, the cultivation and the management of the oil palm, of course, require some level of manpower. And one of the challenges that most farmers or most persons who are involved in the cultivation of this particular crop and maybe other crops generally, one of the challenges they face, though, relative to the environment and location that such a business is situated, is the availability of labor. Though this is a challenge that is general to all agricultural cultivation or general to all crops, but that could be a challenge because right from cultivation, meaning establishment, to management, to the various fertilization and clearing and everything that is associated with the management, even up to harvesting and then down to processing and marketing, all of this require labor force. And so one of the challenges that most persons have talked about is the availability of this labor force. Not just the availability, now also the high cost of labor force that is available could be a challenge to many, could be a challenge to some. Another challenge that most persons talk about or that is related with the oil palm management in Nigeria is a challenge of high cost of planting materials. Except one wants to go for inferior, if you actually aim for the best, there is one thing that cannot be ruled out, and that is the fact that somehow some of these planting materials comes with high cost. And so this could be a challenge. In one of my discussions, I talked about this halfway, where I said because of the high cost of getting the superior or the hybrid planting materials, some persons could resort to getting substandard, a less superior planting materials, which in the long run may not actually give the needed result, may not give the needed production that will actually give you a return on your investment. And so the high cost of planting material is also a challenge. Now, I have said that in Silvawell there are techniques, there are ways that some of these challenges are being handled. But let's run through all the challenges. The third challenge that most persons who are familiar with the oil palm management face is the challenge of high cost of herbicides and fertilizers. We spent enough time talking about the need for control of weeds, and that has to do with sometimes the chemical method of use of herbicides and the use of fertilizers. And no doubt the period we live in, some of these inputs are highly expensive. So the high cost of getting herbicides, the high cost of getting fertilizers, they are one of the several challenges that people talk about. And then the fourth challenge which I want to mention is the challenge of low productivity. In recent times, there have been an outcry of low yield, low productivity of the oil palm. Of course, this could be due to climate, and we've actually spent enough time talking about the issue of climate and how to mitigate the effect the climate will have on productivity. Productivity could also be as a result of pests and disease, and productivity could also be affected by what I call variety integrity, depending on your planting materials and the source of your planting material. So low productivity is another challenge that can be associated with the oil palm management in Nigeria. Again, another challenge, which is the fifth challenge, is environmental concerns. There has been environmental concerns about the oil palm plantation, the concern of deforestation to bring about expansion, the concern of use of chemicals that could also deplete the soil and cause pollution to the environment. All of these are concerns that pose challenge as far as the oil palm management in Nigeria is concerned. We also have the problem of poor infrastructure. Poor infrastructure on one hand, and high cost of processing equipment on the other hand. And so knowing full well that to actually maximize profit in the oil palm business, one, we actually have to not just cultivate and grow your oil palm and then harvest and sell to the market, but also devise a means whereby the processing can also be done by the firm. And the truth is that getting some of this processing equipment could be very, very challenging to some farmers out there. And so these are some of the several challenges that people in the field talk about. The challenge of high cost of labor, the challenge of high cost of planting materials, the challenge of high cost of herbicides and fertilizers, the challenge of low productivity, which could be due to climate, pest, disease, varieties, integrity, the challenge of environmental concerns, and the challenge of poor infrastructure or high cost of processing equipment. All of these challenges are things that Silvawell we are very much conversant with. And so what is the way forward? The way forward that have been adopted in Silvawell Limited is what we want to discuss now. Way forward to these numerous challenges. Number one is what I call the IPM, which is Integrated Pest Management. Of course, weed is a pest, and every other disease, every other pest that affect the oil palm, which we've taken time to discuss in other videos. The issue of control of pests, the issue of control of weeds. Now, I itemize the various methods that can be used. We have the cultural methods, we have the physical method, we have the chemical method, and even the biological methods. Now, a situation whereby the farmer is just focused on one method of controlling of these pests, for example, weed, for example, the use of chemicals, the use of herbicides. So once there is a focus on one method, there's bound to be a problem. So if there is 100% focus on physical method, which has to do with the use of labor, then you will begin to have the challenge of getting labor and all that. But one of the way to solve the problem of high cost of labor or the decline in availability of labor is to adopt the integrated pest management. When this is adopted, it addresses the problem of labor or shortage in labor, and then it addressed the problem of herbicides. It also addressed the problem of the environment concern, because once attention is 100% put into the use of chemicals, again, that could be disastrous to the environment. Hence the reason why in other videos we talked about sustainable agricultural practices, and we related it to the oil palm cultivation. When one of these methods is 100% focused on, we can say that such decision will not be sustainable. So one of the way forward out of the challenge of decline labor, high cost of labor, or environmental challenge, or high cost of herbicides and fertilizer, is to adopt the integrated pest management system, which Silvawell is known with. And then another way out of this challenge is sustainable practices. Some of it is to adopt what we call organic farming, or putting organic farming in synergy with the use of chemicals. So whereby attention is not just put on one of operation, like just on the use of chemicals. So sustainable practices is another way to surmount some of these challenges. Sustainable practice help to surmount the challenge of fertilizer, and the challenge of climate, and the challenge of environment. And so when some of this waste that is derived from your plant materials or animal materials is reincorporated into the soil, it will improve the fertility of the soil, thereby reducing the cost or the expenses that will be made in the procurement of synthetic chemicals. So investing in organic means of replenishing the soil can help reduce demand on fertilizer. And also it can help to checkmate the effect of climate change, as we have discussed in some of our broadcasts. Sustainable practice, as adopted in Silvawell, is one of the approach in overcoming the challenge of high cost of fertilizer, and the challenge of climate, and the challenge of pollution of the environment. And then the third way out of the challenges we have enumerated earlier is to get seed from reliable source. That addresses the challenge of productivity to a large extent. Like I said earlier, I said that getting seeds that are not from reliable source, that are not hybrid, that are not of superior quality, can impact negatively on production. And when that happens, of course, the return will also be affected. One of the ways that Silvawell have adopted to solve that issue or that challenge of productivity in the long run is to get seeds from reliable source. Getting seeds from reliable and reputable organizations that are trustworthy in their crossbreeding programs, and getting hybrid seeds that will actually guarantee high productivity. And then another way that these challenges we've enumerated can also be surmountable is what I refer to as learning the art of nursery. What do I mean by learning the art of nursery? If the farmer wants to solely rely on just getting seedlings from some of these reputable agricultural firm and then transfer and plant in his land, he's going to spend more, because obviously the cost of getting already matured seedlings ready to be transplanted into the field is far higher than what it will cost to just getting sprouted seeds and then raising the nursery yourself. So actually learning the art of nursery can address the challenge of cost in getting planting materials, which are the seedlings which have been grown and raised to the point where it is fit to be transplanted into the field. So learning the art of nursery can help reduce cost and maximize profit. Another solution to the listed or the mentioned challenges is accessible locations. Accessible locations can help address the challenge of infrastructure. There are locations that once it rains, which is a climatic factor, such an environment, such area no longer is accessible. And when this is the case, there can be challenge in getting your product out to be marketed, and this can affect your level of profitability. So one of the solution or way out to deficit in infrastructure is to get an accessible locations for the establishment of your estate, your oil palm estate. And trust you to note that in Silvawell, the accessibility of location is key. And so all of the estates and sites or locations where the agro estate is being located, accessibility is put into consideration so as to overcome some of these challenges that have been enumerated. And then another way, which is the last way I want to talk on, of overcoming some of these challenges that have been adopted in Silvawell, is patronizing locally fabricated processing equipment. This is a method that helps to address the challenge of high cost of processing equipment. And so some of these equipment that are used for processing can be sourced for locally. And when this is adopted, actually less cost can be put into getting all of these machines. These are some of the ways that the mentioned challenge can be surmounted. So whether the challenge of high cost of labor, the challenge of high cost of planting materials, or the challenge of high cost of input like herbicides and fertilizer, challenge of low productivity, challenges of environmental concerns and poor infrastructure, Silvawell Limited have actually devised means and method by which some of these challenges can be navigated. All of this is so that the investor can get maximum return on his investment, because once cost of production is reduced to barest minimum, then profitability can be increased. At this juncture, I want to thank everyone listening to us. Subscribe to our YouTube channels and then have access to all the numerous topics that we have discussed so far as the oil palm is concerned. Till we meet again, where we'll be discussing other important topics. Stay blessed.